All right, let me try this again because I was on, it didn't work. It kicked me off twice, and I'm just seeing if this is working again. It is. Okay. So you're not going to beat me, technology. I will keep going and I will punch you dead in the face 800 times and I will record this damn live stream. So keep bringing it, is all I got to say. Anyway, let's jump into it here. So tomorrow is going to start the first full week of trading in August, August 4th through the 8th. And it should be a fun one. We had a lot of selling come into play on Friday. We were down 126 points on the SPX at one point in time, finished about 101 points down. And that falls in alignment with seasonality this time of year. Typically, August kicks off weakness, and we see that follow through really into October. Bear markets, market corrections tend to finish out at the end of October. You see buyers step in, and then we start the next best 6 months of the market, November through April. So we all saw this coming. The market was completely stretched and elevated to a point where we knew a pullback was coming, yet everybody was saying, what's going on? Why are we selling? We just go straight up. It's not how it works. So the question is going to be, do we continue to follow suit of what happened in 2018 during Trump's first administration? Whenever he implemented tariffs, we had the huge dip, the buy up like we just got, and then there's little pullbacks before grinding higher, and then COVID happened. So that's the model that I'm watching to see if we continue to follow that. So if anything, we should be looking at a 5 to, I'd say, maybe 8% drop here with what we're going to get. The majority of the Mag 8 are done reporting. The one remaining will be NVIDIA, but they're not going to report until the end of the month. So you're still going to have some decent earnings reports that can move the markets here this week. Not a lot of data to speak with. It's just going to be how much fear continues to climb into the market from geopolitical issues. We saw some Truth Social posts from Trump saying to, I forget who the individual was in Russia, that there's nuclear submarines that are pulling up on Russia and all this craziness. Tariffs took effect on August 1st. The unemployment rate ticked up. Non-farm payrolls came in lower than expected. So it was just the perfect convergence of all of these things that just drove volatility up, and then we saw the downward pressure on the market. And then throw in being at all-time highs, you have people who need to trim, take money off the table. The smart money is doing that, and that's where we are. So Daryl, good to see you here, man. Like I said, this is the live stream that doesn't want to happen, but we're going to make it happen. I'm going to pull up my charts here, and then we're going to get going. So give me 1 second, and let me get this set up. All right. There's my trading view. Still getting used to these live streams. Here we go. I think I got it. Share. Window. There we go. All right. So I think we're good. Let me just double check and make sure that you guys can see that. Give me 1 second. I just want to make sure I'm not talking to myself and it's not working here. All right, we're good. All right, so here we go. We're going to start with the SPX, and that's what we're looking at. And you could see this big, beautiful bearish candle that came in on Thursday following Meta and Microsoft earnings, and what great moves they had. We'll take a look at those charts here in a minute, but man, that great push up. But then what happened? You had profit taking come into play. People started to trim their positions. And oh yeah, everybody knows that August 1st was the day after. So I'm sure some of that contributed to the selling that we got here. And that is quite the candle after pushing up high like that. Again, we shot down directly through this volume node here on the VRVP. And then what happened the day later on August 1st? A gap down. And we found a little bit of support come in here at 62.12, 61. And more than likely, we should get a little bit of continuation tomorrow. So a couple targets that I have here on my screen, you could see that a 5% pullback would take us down to 61.0501. So that would be the first area I'd watch for a little bit of a bounce to come into play. And uniquely enough, we see that we have that 50 simple moving average on the daily right there as well. And if we somehow pierce below that and get through that area, we want to watch this unfilled gap here at 60.3008. And that was created back on June 23rd. We gapped up and really haven't looked back since. And something else to just take into consideration with this move that we've had is we haven't been below the 20-day exponential moving average, and it's been quite some time. We'd have to go back to let's see, what is this? April 23rd. So since April 23rd until August 1st, we haven't been below the 20, and we finally are. So just goes to show you how fast and hard that we've run. Check this out too. We also want to pay attention whenever we have those thin areas of volume here on the VRVP. Remember that we can move pretty quickly through those areas. But we do have that 50 that's really going to serve as a line of defense and that unfilled gap. But notice that unfilled gap comes in where all of this support is. So even if we do break through that 50, this area right here is going to be a nice bouncing spot for the SPX. So just keep an eye on those two areas, the 50 SMA and also that unfilled gap 60.2882. But just notice too, we have an uptick in bearish volume along with that move lower. So there's more than likely going to be some continuation. We did come down significantly on the RSI, which was nice because we were overbought. So let's see how much more pressure we have starting tomorrow. And I did bring up in my community, I talked about the flash crash last year in August and how things look a little similar, not completely, but let me pull this up for you guys. You could see here, this was the first really massive red day on August. It was followed, this was a Thursday, and this was off of unemployment data. And then we got a big old gap down. We got support off that 100. And then that Monday, we dropped even further. This was a huge, so from the close here on this Friday last year to the low, that was a 227 point move. Bulls stepped back in and bought that thing up, and we pushed higher. But I was originally thinking maybe we would see something like this on Monday. But just looking at where Bitcoin is right now, up 1,800 points, and just looking at some weekend indicators, it doesn't seem like this is going to happen. But you never know if there's some news that comes out. So I don't think we'll get that big of a drop. So I don't think it'll be sudden. It might be a slower drip, but did want to share that with you guys in terms of what happened last, the flash crash, and how we're really oddly repeating that. So that's where we are in the SPX. If we take a look at the Qs, you're going to see a lot of similarities between the broader markets. Again, below that 20-day exponential moving average, you do have that 50 down here, which would be an area of support. We're actually at this point of control here on the VRVP. But notice if the price action can get through that 50, you're not going to have a lot of support until you get down here to these volume nodes, which also line up with an unfilled gap from June 23rd, like we see on the SPX. So these charts look pretty similar here. Uptick in bearish volume. We came down on the RSI again. So this is needed. This is healthy. And I believe that the Qs are almost at 5%. Well, they're at 4%, so they're close. And if they would hit that 50, that would take it to, what would that be? 5.5% pullback, which we haven't had in quite some time. Taking a look at IWM, I did buy some puts on this guy here on Friday. Doesn't mean that they're going to work out, but just a little bit of a downside hedge here. Gap down, and notice how it found beautiful support here off this 200-day exponential moving average to the penny. And this is why I love moving averages so much, because look at this. I mean, that's to the penny that this thing got bought up. And we saw some significant weakness last year with the weakening of the labor market. on IWM. But the thing to keep in mind here with IWM is the rate cut odds increased, I think, like 80 to 85% on Friday, if you go check out the CME Fed Watch tool. So with rate cuts, that is beneficial for small caps. So I'm kind of uncertain to what will happen here. Is this legitimate buying where this thing is going to push up, or are we going to see a gap down on Monday and this thing fall? My puts have a 206 strike, $206. They expire August 22nd. So if we do get some more weakness, I'll capture some profit on that downside move. Taking a look at the Dow Jones Industrial DIA, you can see that this trend line resistance is a boss, right? It can't break through this. It did pierce above it, and this was a really strong candle close here that we got on the 23rd of July, but it just couldn't handle it. It did consolidate a little bit around there, but then just dropped and came down to that 50 where some buying came in. You've got some room where it could fall down here to this 200 around 428. You have really a bunch of moving averages that can support this thing. So who knows? Maybe this is just a quick little dip across the board on the broader markets, and then we continue to push higher. Again, that would follow suit with what happened in 2018. But you do have a nice little double top pattern here, although this is a lower high, higher high double top, which I typically don't like to trade. I like to see it the other way, higher high, lower high double top. But just keeping an eye on that. And the other thing that I'll point out too, the one thing you'll notice when you're looking at all the broader markets is there is quite a bit of support below to prevent a major, dump. Now, the one thing that will supersede moving averages and support areas or your VRVP support is news, geopolitical conflict, bad data, those types of things. It will cut through all those moving averages like a knife through, a hot knife through butter? You know what I'm trying to say. But if you go back through and look at, all the tariff drama, it just cut through all of that because there was so much negativity and uncertainty. So, and then we take a look at Bitcoin. Like I said, at this point right now, Bitcoin is getting some buying that came in, and as you're seeing is a common theme here with the broader markets as we look, finding support off of that 50, hit there yesterday, and we got some buying that came in today. We do have resistance overhead of that 10. So what to watch here, are we going to get a little bit of a retest into that 10, come back down and test this 100 simple moving average on the daily? That would be nice to see, because really that was the area where it consolidated before it had that push up to 123,000. And just measuring that out from all-time highs down to where we are now, that's 9.24% dip correction. If we would come down to that 100, that will put us at 12.56%. So I still think Bitcoin hits 130,000 sooner rather than later. And by sooner, I mean well before the end of the year. So I'm not buying that this is a full-on dump across the board, but I definitely could be wrong, and it wouldn't be the first time. And then just looking at some other things here, we saw the dollar index. We saw after 6 days of moving higher, we got a drop on that. If we take a look at the 10-year treasury, look at this. Look how much this fell here on Friday. That is a massive drop on the 10-year, and we haven't seen that. I mean, I'd have to go back here. I'd be hard pressed to find a dip probably back here. So last August around the flash crash. So you can see quite a move down there on the 10-year. And remember, the 10-year is tied to mortgage rates. And then we see that the VIX spiked for the first time in a long time and got rejected off that 100 simple moving average on the daily. But typically when the VIX spikes, it will push even higher. So let's see if we get continuation on that. So we'll have to see. So just looking at the questions here. So Jackie says, why do you prefer higher high, lower high on double tops? So Jackie, great question. So higher high, lower high, double tops tells me that the bulls, that first peak, the bulls are in charge. They're running it up. There's enthusiasm, optimism. Bears drive it down, create that trough. And then when it gets pushed up again, it doesn't reach the highs of that previous peak, which tells me that those bulls are losing steam. And so if there is some loss of energy, steam there, then to me, that says that there could be some exhaustion and we're going to get some movement to the downside. So that's why I prefer the higher high, lower high double top. So yeah. All right. So let's take a look at some more things here. My son just did a little cameo there behind me. He's setting the dinner table out here. I just want to go over a couple tickers that I'm watching just for what I think could be decent plays this week. And we're going to start by taking a look at the Boeing chart here. And so, I mean, earnings. Look at this earnings candle. This thing shot above that 100 simple moving average on the monthly, which it hasn't done. Wow, we have to go back to 2024, January 2024. So it's been a while. But notice once it pushed up there, following earnings, what happened? Smacked right back down. All right. And this was before the sell-off that happened on Thursday after Microsoft dropped again on Wednesday, dropped again on Thursday. And then I like this support that came in here off of the 50. This is a common thread with a lot of the charts that we're going to look at. And you do have a lower high, higher high, double top here. But I think that this could be an opportunity for Boeing, at least short term, for a nice little day trade. So I am watching Boeing tomorrow. You can see at the top of my list here. I'm going to be watching this to see if I can catch it on a day trade because the earnings weren't horrible that they reported. Kelly Ortberg, their new CEO, is trying to turn things around. So this is one that I'm watching to see if we can get a bounce off of that 50. So definitely keeping a close eye on Boeing for tomorrow and really all week. So typically when I identify my targets for day trades, I'll kind of stick with them the entire week until I'm able to catch the trade that I'm looking for. But I am looking at Boeing long. SMCI is another one. I got to give my screen some time here to load. They are going to report earnings on Tuesday, and they haven't had a big move on earnings in quite some time. You did have a gap down from Thursday to Friday, as did everything else. We do have some support down here at this volume node where some consolidation took place, but this thing really, it has room to go. It's created this rounding bottom pattern. We do have this upper trend line resistance, but we do have a gap that needs filled at 86.53. So while not a huge mover on earnings, could this be an outlier performance for SMCI? Can we see this thing push? I do like how buyers stepped in when this pushed below the 10-day exponential moving average. So again, I'm going to watch this one for some quick day trades this week because I do think that there's a little bit of room here, especially if we get some buyers who come in early this week. So I am watching SMCI. And then the trade desk is another one. Again, despite all of that weakness that came in across the board, this thing held up pretty steadily. And you finished with a nice bullish candle here, a hammer-esque candle right off of that point of control, thick volume node there on the VRVP. We're above that 10-day exponential moving average. And so this one is showing that it's hanging in there. It's not overbought on the RSI. And we have earnings coming up for this company on Thursday. Again, this could have some good opportunities here for day trade. So I'll watch this one with this overhead resistance, this 200 SMA on the daily around 90.78. But there could be a good opportunity there. So I am watching Boeing, SMCI, and the trade desk for day trade opportunities this week. So those are three that I have my eyes on. And let's just go take a look at some other charts that are of interest to me for this week. And if you have some charts, go ahead and throw them in there. I can take a look at them for you. But I do want to take a look here at CRCL, Circle Internet Group. Here we go. Here's a higher high or below the neckline and 35.14 that we could fill. So watch this one. I actually played this with puts the last 2 weeks, made a little bit of cash on it, but I think there could be a bigger move to the downside here. So this chart is intriguing me. I'm going to keep this one. Daryl says, is this a good time to trade or wait? So it depends on what type of trading that you're going to do. So if we are going to shift short-term trend, it's going to take a little bit of time to adapt to this change. I don't think we're going to shift the long-term change. We'd have to drop lower than 20% off the highs. But it will take a little bit to adjust to what the new movement pattern is going to be. So there will be a few days there for it to establish itself. So this could be a little bit of a wonky week to just get settled in. I know Friday for me, just adjusting to the short-term trend change was a little sticky. So it could be a time to wait and just see, all right, let me let this play out. Let me see if we do continue to go lower, where are we retesting and then having the move continue short. So it could definitely be a time to wait, see how the market's moving, get a feel for it, and then proceed once you feel comfortable with what you're seeing. So here's what I'll say about waiting and trading. There is nothing wrong with it because it means you're not losing any money. So if you don't have confidence in what you're seeing, then it is best to wait and be patient. So yeah, waiting is not a bad thing this week. I think all we have in terms of data this week is ISM services. Let me see. And that's on, yeah, ISM services comes in at 10. But other than that, you have some Fed speakers, nothing really crazy until next week when we get CPI and PPI. So yeah, now I would say give it a few days, wait, see what the trend is, see what transpires with these tariffs, and get a feel for the way things are moving, and then hop back in. Because we just don't know. This thing could just rocket back up tomorrow. We get a gap up, and all the selling is over. So a deal could get done with China. So you just don't know. There's too many variables out there. So. Let's take a look at a couple more. So Roku got smashed on earnings, and that's because some of their long-term estimates for their forward guidance and revenue, I think, were below what analysts expected. But weirdly enough, they got price target upgrades. So we'll see how long this one hangs out here. I think it's just a matter of time before someone announces that they acquired Roku. I think that's happening. But that was a nice move here. Lots of support down here. This thing shouldn't stay down there for too long. Apple, I have a long-term position in this one. And I had my bear case at 190. I still think it has a chance to get down here. But it's sitting right at the point of control here on the VRVP, back down into this glut of price action and the support area. So this can come down further. I'm in this until, like I said, probably around January. And remember, things are laggards until they aren't. So eventually your money is going to come out of your Microsofts, out of your NVIDIAs, and it will come back into Apple. It'll come back into Google. And yes, it'll come back into Tesla. Who knows? But I'm still bullish on Apple when everybody else isn't. And it's just a matter of time before they announce what they're doing with AI. And people want to say that, oh, Apple's done, they're over. But remember, it was the first $3 trillion company, and don't sleep on Apple, right? So this thing can move, and it wasn't that long ago that it was a $260 stock, and that was last December. So just keep that in mind. Amazon took it on the chin, and this gap up here, this is the second time it got back up into that price area and smacked back down. Again, it hit my bear case off earnings almost to the penny there. But again, a lot of support down here. This thing should have some buyers who step in and buy it up. FIG, this is a new IPO. This thing had a open to the high there. So a 58. But if you stayed in that thing too long and you to the close there, that's a $21 move. You could have got burned. So we'll see what happens with FIG, if the enthusiasm stays or if it dips. Taking a look at Roblox, this was such a great move here off of earnings. Look at that. But then makes a new all-time high. Bam, bam. Back-to-back bearish engulfings. But it's just right back to where it was consolidating here. Point of control, VRVP. So there's support here. This thing could just find support along that POC, maybe comes down, test that 50, and then resumes higher. Because this thing has just been so strong and needed to cool off, and it did. And it's still rather up there on the RSI. Take a look at a few more here. Microsoft, bang, all-time high. What a move. And then just smash, smash. So it looks like it'll come down, fill that gap, and then we'll see if it consolidates, move sideways a bit. And then Meta, jeez, man, this hit my bull case, cleared it, made a new all-time high, but then gap down on Friday. This thing will hit $1,000. I'll go on the record and say that this will be $1,000 stock by the time it's all said and done with here. So by the end of the year, but a good move on Meta, and that had to cool off a little bit as well. And I'm just going to take a look at a few more here before I hop off, unless you guys have something you want me to take a look at. I did want to look at the Netflix chart because this thing should be due for a bounce after hitting all-time highs. We have come down from all-time highs, let's see, $188. So I would think that even a short-term bounce here would be coming in on Netflix, and we would at least come up and test that 50 SMA on the daily. Again, that's a common thread with what I've been talking about here recently. That's a significant price point. So watch to see if Netflix can get some love this week and if we can get a little bit of a bounce on there. And let me see. And Jackie, I'm going to come to your question here in a second. I'm going to look at two more. Let me look at Tesla, Coinbase, and then I'm going to look at Palantir, and then we'll wrap this show up. So Tesla, again, we have this upper trend line resistance here since the December highs. This thing's really just struggled, but we are forming this support here on this 100 SMA on the daily. We are making higher lows, but this is, it's just so hard for me to commit to anything Tesla. We are getting, look at how we're getting squeezed by these moving averages too, right? You have this 50, you have the 200, you have the 100. It's all converging on the price action. So that's saying there is a move coming. But if we're looking at this, it's almost like a descending wedge or a descending, descending wedge. We're breaking down. And if it keeps coming to a point here, for instance, let me just draw this out. If we just keep coming down into a point, what should happen is a move lower. So, I mean, that would make sense with everything happening with Tesla. Like I said, I'm not touching it right now. I'm not trading it. I'm not buying it long term. I want it to come lower. So I'll keep watching that. Let's take a look at Coinbase. Man, this thing just got smoked on earnings. I didn't see that coming. That's a hell of a gap. But again, right at the 50. So, and look how quickly that came down on the RSI pretty fast. So, and it's basically retesting the highs that it made November, December of this past year. But that gap will eventually get filled to the upside, but Coinbase got smashed. And let's take a look at Palantir for Jackie. Update this new all-time high. And the last time Palantir reported, if I'm not mistaken, they gapped down. They did. So we had a gap down the last time they reported. The time before that, massive gap up. So, you know, I'm not a really great Palantir trader. I don't trade it very often. Occasionally I'll take a day trade on it. But being up near all-time highs and just going with the sentiment of this time of year, you would have to think that this one's going to come down. You'd have to think there's going to be a little bit of weakness here in the market, but it is Palantir, and the way that it moves is not based on rationality at all, because we could see here when it gapped up, it was already overbought and then it pushed higher. So I wouldn't be surprised, Jackie, if when we have our blueprint class, if this thing gaps up to 180 and pushes even higher. So I don't have a real good edge on this one. Like I said, I would not be surprised at all to see it gap up higher. I know that Palantir just did pick up some new government contracts. And then if it would move to the downside, just taking a look at how it moved to the downside the last time, about $18. And then this gap up, what did we have? Was that about $19? Should say like $18.50 either way. $18.50 to the upside would take us to 172. Let's just mark that out there. And then 18 to the downside would take us to 18.50. That's close enough. but just to give us a range to look for, that would take us to 135.58. So I'll be watching those two key areas. So I really don't have a feel for this stock to give you anything. But again, if I'm just looking at it and just a general interpretation, we're at all-time highs, weakness in the market, weakness seasonally, you'd expect it to come down. But it's Palantir and it does crazy things. So that's what I have for you guys. I appreciate you joining me. This was the live stream that refused to happen, but I made it happen. Technology, I beat you today, even though I don't have my setup. I'm working on getting my setup fixed. Summertime is winding down, so things are becoming a lot less chaotic. But I appreciate you joining me here for the live stream. I hope you guys have a great week. I'll have a bunch of earnings previews coming out this week, more videos. And I just appreciate all your support and you guys joining me, hanging out. So Jackie and Daryl, thanks for your questions. It means a lot. And keep watching the videos. That helps me out a ton. And I will see you guys back here for another live stream soon. Take care, everyone.